All right, so we're going to talk now about the process of labor. And the very first section of that is going to be what's leading up to labor. So Braxton Hicks contractions are felt as early as 16 weeks. They're probably happening quite a bit before that. They continue to get more frequent, more regular throughout pregnancy. As labor gets closer, there may be short periods of more regular Braxton Hicks contractions. Sometimes that's mistaken for the onset of active labor, but we're going to talk about that in just a minute. So another thing that happens toward the end of pregnancy, especially in a first pregnancy, is the fetus may actually move down into the pelvis. And when that happens, it's called lightening. The patient might feel like, oh, I can breathe now. I have room for food now, but also the fetus moves down, so it puts more pressure on the bladder. You might also see a visible drop in the appearance of the abdomen. And sometimes the fetal measurement, the fundus measurement at those visits during that time actually go down because part of the fetus is actually hiding down in the pelvis. The person may notice their mucus plug is lost. I mean, there's thick, that's a blob of mucus or just an increase in mucus for a few days. It may be blood tinged. They may have a backache. They may have a little bit of weight loss in the last week before delivery. They may get a surge of energy. They talk about the nesting instinct where somebody wants to go and clean the whole house or paint the nursery or whatever. That's really common. They may have some diarrhea. They may even have some nausea, vomiting, and indigestion in that last week or so. Indigestion should be evaluated because it can be connected to a complication. Labor is not a switch. It's not a switch that flips. It often begins gradually. They may notice that their contractions are just getting more regular and stronger. And that may actually happen over several days or even a couple of weeks before they get into the active part of labor. So sometimes we're even getting some cervical change, but it's very slow over those several days before labor begins. Sometimes the water breaks first, but sometimes that happens later in labor. If it doesn't, and it's not artificially ruptured, the baby can actually deliver with the membranes intact. Okay. I want to talk about the term false labor. You need to know the term because that's the most commonly used term. It is not my preferred term, and there are other people now kind of moving toward or away from that as a term, because when imagine you're 40 weeks pregnant and 1,082 days, you're just like so done, ready to be done with this. You're very excited to have this baby, meet the baby, everything's very exciting. You start having contractions, you go to the hospital, they put you on the monitor, they check you, and they're like, it's false labor, go home. How does that make you feel? It can feel to the patient as if they don't really know their body, as if they can feel demeaned, and as if they're imagining things. Okay. I prefer the term prodromal labor. What you will hear more often is false labor. So you need to know the term false labor. But what I want you to understand is that it's not false labor. It's just that we're not active labor yet. Okay. So in true labor, the contractions are regular. They increase in frequency, intensity, and duration. Okay. Prodromal labor or false labor, the contractions are more likely to be irregular. They may get stronger and then kind of wimpy. They kind of wax and wane in intensity. They may change in frequency and duration. Okay. In true labor, when we're moving towards cervical change, they are more likely to feel that discomfort in the lower back and down in the pelvis. The discomfort of Braxton Hicks contractions or those pre-labor or prodromal labor contractions is more felt in the upper abdomen, and they may not be as painful. They're not relieved by exercise, warm bath, or rest. So true labor, exercise, warm bath, or a rest don't change them. In prodromal labor or false labor, if you go for a walk, get in a bath, or lay down for a rest, those contractions may go away. Okay. And the one thing, this is diagnostic for, is this patient in labor, is their cervical change? Is the cervix thinning and dilating? In prodromal labor, there's not going to be very much cervical change. There may be some thinning, but you're not going to see a lot of effacement. You may see a little, you're not going to see dilation very much. Okay. Softening and a little effacement is still happening. So what I really try to teach patients is, if you go to the hospital and you are having those contractions and you think this is it, and you get sent home and it's not, the message I want them to take away is those contractions are doing some work. They are making changes. We're just not ready for active labor yet. Okay. You need to know for the test how to distinguish between true labor and false labor. All right. We're going to talk next about actual labor, what happens when it really is the day.